So let's be honest, this video nobody wants me to make. eBay won't touch it. The seller's doing it. Well, they'd rather I just shut up. And yeah, I expect this will make me unpopular and there will be lots of comments. But I'm not here for the likes. If I was, I would be have better scripts, better lighting, and a decent camera. And I would also be publishing dancing cat videos. So let's take on the elephant in the room. Meet Joe, everyone. He's sold 900 items this year, all under a private account. So no business registration, no liability insurance, no consumer protection. But hey, he's just a casual seller, right? So let's go through the justifications and the persona behind accounts like Joe's. In one, we've got the denier. It's just a side hustle, not a real business. In two, the casual flipper. I only sell when I feel like it. In three, they've got that invisibility cloak. HMRC won't come after someone like me. In four, that justification that everyone else is doing it. It's the herd follower. In five, no income tax, no VAT. It's the real deal guy. Buyers don't care. They just want cheap stuff. In six, they whisper it quietly. I just sell used stuff. I'm not a trader. I just refurb. In seven, the threshold twister. I'm just under the threshold, so it's fine. In eight, everyone's favourite, let's just blame eBay. They keep changing all the rules, so I'm not going to take responsibility for compliance failures. Just keep the full tax burden off the books. In nine, well, I can't be doing anything wrong. It must be eBay's fault. They're not forcing me to. It's the platform passer. In 10, from the rootin' tootin' Wild West, it's the No Returns Ranger. In 11, now for legal reasons I can't call people a tax dodger, and I would never break the law. Let's call them the Threshold Acrobat, who expertly slips under the mark by an artful transaction here and well-timed expense there. So in 12, the Stockpile Pretender. I just happen to have 50 identical phone chargers of my own personal use. It's the bulk denier. So there's just one thing I want to say on this before I carry on with the video. In the UK, if you sell with an intent to profit, whether you buy stock, you refurbish something, you enhance something, you make something, it's operating under a business model. So start leaving your comments below during the rest of this video. If you're for it, if you have no objections to it, if you've got no objections to anyone trading under a private account and making a bit of money and sticking it to the man, leave those comments below. If you are totally against it and it's impacting you as a small business, leave those comments below. If you think the playing field is level and it doesn't matter if you've got good quality products, it will shine through no matter what competition you have. I can flip that round. If you think it is a unlevel playing field and anyone masquerading as a private seller is undercutting you, not following the legislation, please leave those comments below. Hopefully we can have a constructive debate, view conversations in the comments. And now it's time to crack on with regards to the impacts and what happens and what potentially could happen if you continue to masquerade as a private account with really your intent is to make profit. If you watch my videos, you know I love a great chart, and this is another chart that I've put together. Now, because sometimes people say I go too fast or they can't understand my voice. What I've done on this chart is I've thrown together an example seller type, what they sell, business traits present if they are, and the risks or the grey areas, and why they potentially would want to stay private. So let's have a look at it. Say spare parts recycler, you buy old PCs, you strip them down, and you've got spare parts. If they're your own PC when you start with, you've got 4 in the shed, absolutely great. It's your stuff, you're a private seller. But if you then go and source them from friends, family, car boot sales, all that, that's where you're getting into a grey area. So they strip the parts from the old personal items, but business traits are present if it's minimal, no sourcing or a refurb. But then it comes into the risky or grey area. May cross into trading if parts are sourced to sell. You've gone and bought that PC. And why you would stay private, or why they choose to stay private, because they avoid fees. They can give it a casual vibe, and it feels like if they know what they're doing and they sense it right, they can give a personal story about the part. Now, this is one that is quite controversial in my mind, and it is quite a grey area, and I still agree this is a grey area. The hobbyist collector. So you collect comics, you collect postcards, you old tech, Commodore 64 games, vintage toys, trading cards, and you do that occasional buying and swapping. You'll sell a few to buy a few. Now, if you're upgrading your collection, is it reselling? No, because you're just upgrading your collection. But when does upgrading your collection turn into reselling? And this is where it becomes very, very difficult, because I have in the past privately bought 400 Commodore 64 games to get 2 games out of that pack. And for all those that know it, one of them was Lethal Weapon on Hit Squad. I drove all the way up to York, paid £400 for 400 games, and I only wanted 2 out of them because one of them was a Hit Squad Lethal Weapon for the Commodore 64. I then sold subsequently the other 398 and made a huge profit on it. I had crossed the line from hobbyist to trader. Moving on to the next one is a low niche volume seller. So it's very rare. You've got these items. I think you specialize in limited edition model figures. I mean, real limited edition. I watched a video on YouTube about the Vaux Drift figure set. I can't remember his name, and he probably wouldn't want to be associated with my channel anyway, so I'm not going to mention it because nobody would want to be associated with my channel. It's rare, it's slow moving, it's discontinued items. So you might have a high listing count, you might have loads of these from your own personal collection, but they're going to turn over, so it looks like you've got 500 listings, but they're only going to be sold once in blue moon. But if you suddenly buy and source to sell, it's trade. And business fees outweigh the revenue, and niche buyer trust. So that's why you'd want to stay as a private seller. But should you stay as a private seller? And then finally, just to throw another category, it's this flash in the pan trader. It's somebody who just registers an account, just happens to have a load of gear moving up to Christmas, got hold of it from somewhere, bulk buy during the sales, and sells it in bursts. So what you've got is somebody's gone and bought, I don't know, let's say calendars. They've gone and bought a shed load of 2026 calendars. Boom. They pop up as a private seller. They will list every one of those calendars in November, December, and they're gone. They're vanished. So they're treating it as a one-time side hustle. That's quite risky logic. But if they stay with a private listing, it's flexible, and they avoid scrutiny. So this is all grey areas. So what do you think of any of those? Do you think I've got them wrong? Do you think I should move into one area? Do you need an explanation, or would you think I need to give a better explanation of some of those? Or do you agree with me? And potentially these are, some of them grey, some of them no. End of story. You are a business. Take, for instance, the flash in the pan trader. You are a business. If you've bought 1,000 calendars and you're going to sell them in November, or you've made 1,000 calendars and you're going to sell them in November, and you put them on eBay and you sell them, and they cost you £2 and you sell them for £8, you are a trader and you shouldn't be using a private account. So, have I become a Killjoy, a resale vigilante, a Dudley Do-Right, with a dashboard, of course? Or do we all agree that a business masquerading as a private seller's is the marketplace equivalent of, like, saying, I don't know, Weatherspoons is just a big kitchen with mates over? It's not fooling anyone. Now, once again, everybody, I am not in any way legally qualified to say any of this. I'm just going to throw it up because this is what I've done some research on. And this is some of the things that I looked at when I made my first move from operating from a private account and went into that trader account when I bought 400 Commodore 64 games. Wow, you heard that story earlier. So the legal implications of masquerading as a private seller. So there's something about consumer law. So you could breach consumer law. So there's things like you have to have a 14-day cooling off period, rights to return faulty goods, and you've got to clearly identify who you are as that seller with contact information. You have to do that on a business account. You don't have to do that on a private account. So ultimately, I'm not saying it is going to happen, but you could be prosecuted under consumer protection from Fair Trading Regulations 2018 or akin to that. Do all your legal research. I'm just throwing it out there as some of the consequences. Moving on to the next one. And another thing that I had to look into is because I sold a lot of refurbished tech, Commodore 64s, Spectrums, Amstrads, and all of the like. And yeah, I can use the soldering iron and I can do bits and bobs and all that sort of stuff. So I had to make sure that product safety and the liability that if I was a individual, what could happen? So if I was masquerading and I'd refurbished, stripped the boards down, resoldered, socketed them, sent them out on a Commodore 64, and it blew up, or it burned the house down, what liability would I have for that? Because as a private seller, there's a different whole set of product safety liabilities, and that comes under electrical safety, general product safety, and as a business seller, you have to take that into account. But if you're a private seller and you sold something and it burned somebody's house down, you could be liable for it, and there could be a civil or even criminal charges brought against you on it. And I wasn't prepared to take that risk, so I went, right, I'm going in full on trader account. I am not going to sell any refurbished technology that's got a plug on it that somebody could plug in and eventually something could go wrong and it could come straight back and burn my ass. And that was one of the biggest reasons why I said, no way, I'm moving straight into a trader account. Now I'm going to put this straight out there. The tax man is not on my Christmas card list. I'm not like everybody. I'm adverse to paying taxes, but I pay my taxes. So 40%, it just goes. And you pay the tax man. That's it. That's just part and parcel of living in the UK. You pay your taxes. It's not like we're in Greece or anywhere like that. Apologies to any Greek people that do pay the taxes. I just spent quite a while in Kalamaki, and the taxi drivers were quite shocked that it was probably the first time in a few decades they're having to pay their taxes in advance because they didn't trust them to pay them at the end of the year. So the tax and HMRC exposure, and now eBay are cracking down on this. And this isn't eBay. This is all to do with some digital trading tax laws that every platform and everybody's got to do it, even YouTube. There you go. So if you earn over, or you process over 1,740 quid or 30 plus transactions, eBay are going to send you details to the HMRC or ask for them, or they're going to send a nice big non-compliant label on your file when it gets sent over at the end of the year. If you're a private trader, if you're a private seller and you're only selling your own stuff and you've made a profit, that you don't have to worry about it. It's not going to give you any hassle. When the letter comes through, just say, yeah, it's my own stuff. Come around, check it. It was left to me by my nan. I've just sold it on eBay. Don't worry about it. But if you're trading and then they come and knock on your door and you've got a private account and they've asked you on the letter, they will look at the account, and they are quite clever now. They're not like the old pull the wool over their eyes. They're not quite as bad as the Batman. Yeah, if the Batman ever knocks on your door, be prepared to give them your left kidney and smile about it. It's the one people you don't annoy. Never annoy the Batman. You risk penalties, you risk interest, and investigation for tax evasion. Now that is that's considerably different to just not paying your taxes. And they use a whole lot of different parameters to actually assess it. And they will go into your listing patterns. So they'll look at the regularity, they'll look at the profit motive, and they'll look at where you got the stuff from. So You can't actually say, I just happen to have 50 mobile phone chargers lying around my shed because I bought them in 2022 thinking I might need these 50 phone chargers. Unless you bought 50 Apple lightning cables because your dog keeps chewing them up and then Apple changed the connector, you could get away with it because that is plausible. Because somebody I know did buy 50 Apple lightning charging cables because their dog kept eating them. So bought a bulk pack of 50 of them. And then within 9 months, he upgraded his phone and they changed it to USB-C because of the European regulations. So there's the tax and HMRC implications that you do need to be aware of. So if Saturn is aligned with Pluto, Mars is orbiting the Sun 10 times faster, the Earth has stopped moving, and eBay do actually try and come along and do some platform enforcement, i.e. They think they're going to lose out some money and you flagged them and somebody's gone, whoa. They could restrict your account. They could hide your listings. They hide everybody's listings at the moment unless you pay for promoted listings. That is my opinion, not indicative of anybody or any credible source for that. Or they could suspend your privileges, or they could just turn you off. Or more than likely, they turn around and send you a nice email saying you're going to be upgraded to a business account at this date. Tough. You want to continue selling on this platform, you are automatically going to be turned into a business account. And that's what will happen. So you've got the eBay potential platform enforcement coming on that. Well, I'm still standing in this circle, even though I could have gone big again, but I quite like recording this circle. So I can leave my glasses on, I can read some of the text. Anyway, so the bottom line, and I'm just getting on my soapbox for this bit. If you sell like a business, you must act like one. Masquerading as a private seller isn't just unfair, it's illegal. It undermines buyer trust, exposes you to a liability, and risks serious consequences from the regulators. There you go. I said consequences quite correctly in that matter. So it's at your own risk. And really, if you are trading and making a profit and you're still on that private account, if somebody gets knocked with you, if something happens, you are putting yourself potentially at risk. And it's really that the only person that can decide is yourself. It's that risk versus reward factor, like everything in life. And that is down to personal choice. There's still more to come in this video. It's not me with a parting thing. I'm just going to leave you on that line. Leave comments on that because comments are good for videos, even the negative ones about me. I really love those, by the way. Keep them coming. So I'm going to do some comparisons now over the next 5 minutes, if you're still with me, and leave comments on these because I'd be interested to see what your viewpoints on them really are. So undercut by loopholes. So a registered business seller will pay listing fees, final value fees, VAT, and they probably have a lot of tools, a listing tool, customer service tool, all these things that they put in. Might even have some QuickBooks accounting software, not connected with QuickBooks in any way, shape or form. So apologies, QuickBooks, if you've got an indirect association with one of my videos. Meanwhile, somebody masquerading as a seller under a private account, they've got commercial intent, but they haven't got all that stuff and they haven't got a face with that stuff. So the reality and the result of it is honest traders are priced out. They're forced to compete with sellers who have zero overheads and no compliance costs. Now, distorted marketplace visibility. Now, some of this has changed a bit from when I first originally, quite a few months ago, when I first toyed with this idea of putting this video together, because I was just working with Cassini back then when I was starting playing with it. So eBay's algorithm doesn't always distinguish, well, it can't distinguish between a genuine private seller and a stealth business. It sees them as a private seller. So you get these high volume private listings flooding the market. And I mean, some of these people that are saying they are private sellers have 4,000 listings, which flood search results. And they're burying the small business sellers who follow the rules. And ultimately, this erodes trust and it devalues the professional listings, especially in categories like electronics and fashion. Because these business sellers masquerading as private to Jane Blogs typing away on eBay, they look at them and they don't know. They think they're a business seller. They think they're getting all the things, but they don't look at the bottom and see a business address. They'll just see private. And that is not a very good level playing field. So let's sum that up in another chart to come soon. So for any of you that were suffering table or chart withdrawal, here we go. So it is an uneven playing field. So if we take it into this account, trader type, fees paid, buyer protection, visibility. So a genuine business seller has high fees from the buyer protections point of view. And I do not mean the new wonderful eBay buyer protection fee, but from the protections that the law gives to our buyer, they have full compliance with that. And their visibility can be lower sometimes. Now, a masquerading seller, fees paid, low or none now in some cases. Their buyer protections are not enforced. They're just saying, oh, no, this is my own personal stuff that I'm selling. Even though they spent 4 days refurbing it, rebuilding it and putting it all together and buying all the parts for £100 and selling this new super item for 500. And then their visibility can be higher because they've bombarded it with 4,000 listings because they haven't got to pay for them. So to sum it up, it's like you're running a shop and then someone pulls up outside and starts selling out the back of their van exactly the same stuff as you've got in your shop, but they've got no rules. And for any of you that are still awake, probably the ones that have fell asleep and my video is going to get the full viewer retention on it. But if you are awake, let's throw a few more into this. You've got reputation damage. If a buyer buys something from a masquerading business seller as a private account and they get burned by it, or they buy something that's dodgy, they don't actually just say, oh, it's a private seller and it was made in business. They blame the whole platform. And that carries across everyone. So the backlash hits legitimate businesses as well as others. So now a legitimate business in the same field to potentially win that buy back or what they've told everybody else has to work harder to rebuild that trust and to justify the price that they are setting. Don't forget, this business seller that's following all the rules, has brought all the rules and has had it pat tested and has got an electrician to check this and has done all this, is probably pricing that item £50 in some cases more than the masquerading business seller as a private person that didn't have to comply with that. And then there's the psychological toll and what we all talk about and what everybody moans about. So the small traders, and I'm not talking about the big Temu, Shane type traders that have appeared on eBay, flooding the markets with all the foreign-made goods. The small traders that are specialising in this field or trying to compete often feel penalised for doing things properly. And some of them, and many are even tempted to actually say, stuff this, if I can't beat them, I'm going to join them. And they really can consider downgrading to private accounts. And all this is doing is creating for the platform a race to the bottom, even though eBay might be doing that themselves as well. We're on the back straight now, ladies and gents. If anybody's still, I keep saying this, but we're on the back straight now. Let's have a go. So some of the justification. So eBay's fees are too high. Well, we know eBay's fees are too high. So quote is, if I register as a business, I'll get hit with listing fees, final value fees, VAT and shop subscriptions. I am just trying to survive. So they will see a private account as a way to stay lean, even if it means dodging compliance. And some people argue that the eBay fee structure punishes small traders. So in the mind of staying as a private, you are leveling the playing field, and because eBay's jump to that small business category is too high, is too much, and you wouldn't be able to function if you made that move. So there are people out there that genuinely still think they are not a business, even though they're following and looking and are operating as a business. And it's, sometimes I say, I only sell when I have time. It's just a side hustle. I'm not Amazon. But even if you buy stock, refurbish items and sell regularly, people will convince themselves that, oh, it's just casual. It's I've got a job. It's not my job. I only do it part-time. And they lean on ambiguity and they'll say, well, I'm not VAT registered, so I'm not a real business. And all this is some form of justification to stay as that private account. But those things are going to come back now, especially with the eBay and HMRC, and well, HMRC's not just eBay, but HMRC's requirements for people to be, their details to be sent over. This is really going to come back, and some people are going to get burned on this. That the platform might not burn you, but HMRC will. And the thinking that a buyer doesn't care who you are. End of story. Doesn't care who you are. And in some ways, they are right. And, people just want a good deal. They don't care if I'm a business or not. And they ignore the fact that what they're doing is the buyer is actually losing out on potentially consumer rights. So it is a risk-based reward for both the buyer and the seller in that case, because if it's too good to be true, sometimes it's not. So they're running that risk. And that logic prioritizes the price over protection, and assumes that any buyer that they sell to will not notice if something goes wrong. Now, my experience with eBay at the moment is that buyers are actually becoming more and more aware of what you're selling, and they are becoming far more aware, and they're becoming far more picky, and they are becoming that. It's like every buyer now that's on eBay has bought themselves off Amazon the biggest magnifying glass they could find, and the first thing that they do is they scrutinize, and even down to, I don't know, atomic or microscopic levels, things that are sent to them. So if people are behind this premise that buyers don't care who I am, I think that's slowly losing credibility. And this finally leads me to the dangerous logic loop, some great sounding thing. And I quote, I'm not a business, but I sell like one. I'm not liable, but I sell electronics or electricals. I'm not cheating, but I'm avoiding fees. I'm not misleading, but I won't offer returns. The internal monologue probably lets people sleep at night, but that is okay, and that is fine until something explodes, a buyer complains, or HMRC comes knocking.